Nancy, we're going to have more details of Mueller's live speech that he just gave on the show tonight. The show's always 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern on tyt.com. And if you miss any part of the show, you could become a member at tyt.com/trial. It's a free week to just try out membership. I'm telling you all that because we're going to have a ton of details tonight at 6 o'clock Eastern on the show. But I want to clarify right away what Mueller just said. So Mueller does a press conference and he says insufficient evidence on conspiracy. That is what is colloquially referred to as collusion. So it doesn't mean that there is no evidence on that. And he said the Russians definitely interfered in the investigation, and the American people should do something about that and should be concerned. That was the last part of what he said. So we do have Russian interference, but insufficient evidence on conspiracy. So that's important. And if you're saying that he exonerated Trump on collusion, there is some truth to that. It's not exactly right because he's not saying he didn't do it. He's just saying there's not enough evidence to charge him. And if you want to run with that, God bless. I totally understand that, okay? Now, I think he didn't look into his business interests. We'll talk more about that tonight. So I think that there's a reason to think that there was collusion otherwise, or legally conspiracy otherwise outside of the election. But I don't want to go back down that rabbit hole for now, because the more important part of the press conference was he then clearly contrasted it to the obstruction charges, where where he said, if we thought that there was insufficient evidence to charge him, we would have told you. In other words, there is clearly sufficient evidence to charge him on obstruction. He then clearly explained, because of Department of Justice policy, I cannot charge him, and the special counsel can, and the Justice Department can. Now, that's his interpretation of that policy, but that's okay. Again, we can get into more details in the live show at 6 o'clock. But for now, what he's saying is, I can't charge him. That doesn't mean he didn't do it. I just laid out 10 different cases where he did obstruct justice. So who are the only people who can charge a sitting president according to Mueller? Well, that's Congress. And that's also said in the report itself, okay? So that's a long way of saying impeach the mother effer. That's the legal translation, or the translation of his legal jargon. I'm not kidding. That press conference was all to say, I definitely did not clear him on obstruction charges. If we were going to clear him, we would have told you, just like we did tell you on the collusion and conspiracy charges. In essence, he was saying they did clear him on that, but not on the obstruction charges where he is guilty, but I can't charge him. So that's him saying basically, Nancy, ball's in your court. Are you going to charge him or aren't you going to charge him? Because you're the only one who can act against a sitting president. So look, Justin Amash, a Republican congressman's on fire, talking about we got to impeach him, otherwise there's no rule of law in this country, right? It's deeply embarrassing to the Nancy Pelosi's of the world that they're being outflanked on impeachment of a Republican president by the right wing. Okay, more details about Amash and even Steve Bannon going after Donald Trump today, etc. I'm not saying that Amash is right on anything else. I'm not saying Steve Bannon's ever been right on anything, period, or that we should use him as an authority. I'm saying even the most rabid part of the right wing is saying, yes, you gotta impeach. Mueller does a press conference saying he did do obstruction, and I'm telling you that if he hadn't done it, I would have told you he hadn't done it, or that there was insufficient evidence to charge him. I didn't say that. So the only people who can act is Congress. So right now, the biggest protector of Donald Trump in the country is Nancy Pelosi. And that's just a fact. It could be an uncomfortable fact. You might not like that fact. You might not like me pointing out that fact. But right now, the person who can start impeachment proceedings and the only one who can take action on this clear law breaking by Donald Trump that Mueller just laid out is Nancy Pelosi. She has to start the impeachment proceedings. And then this idea, well, politically, we can't get the Republicans in the Senate to agree. One, you're not supposed to take legal action based on whether it helps or hurts your political chances. So impeachment is a very serious thing. You shouldn't do it lightly, and you definitely shouldn't do it for politics. But you do have an obligation, and you also shouldn't stop it because of politics. You shouldn't say, well, legally we should act, but no, we're going to say that the Constitution doesn't matter anymore, the rule of law doesn't matter anymore, because I don't think it would play well for me politically, or I don't think it'll play well for the Republicans politically. And by the way, that's not your business, okay? So, and finally, the last thing is, look, how do you know that the Republicans aren't going to impeach him? Right now, I'm not naive. Of course they wouldn't do it today. But after you had hearings in the House, after the whole case is laid out for the American people, what it would do is it would create pressure on the Republicans. Either agree with what is likely to be about 2/3 of the country and maybe lose your seat, or they might actually be pressure to impeach. But you'll never find out, or to convict him in the Senate, you'll never find out if you don't actually try, which is the number one problem of Democrats overall. They never actually make their own case, and right now Nancy Pelosi is actively making Trump's case for him implicitly by not charging him. So now the MAGA guys go, well, even if your Democratic leaders don't think he should be tried, well, and Mueller said, they'll say, Mueller said I can't charge him. Nancy Pelosi says I won't charge him, so I guess he's innocent. That's the case that they'll make, aided and abetted by Democratic leadership. So it is time to act. Rashida Tlaib was right. She was right from day one. We have a petition, tyt.com/impeach. Look, I don't know if it'll make a difference if that gets to 100,000 or 1 million people, but let's try everything we can to get them to actually act so that we can maintain our democracy and our rule of law. Mueller was super clear. He did do the obstruction. He said if he didn't do it, we would have told you. He can't be clearer than that. Well, he can be clearer than that, but that is Mueller speak for as clear as he can be. He did it. He did it. And basically drops the mic and says, what are you going to do about it, Nancy? And that's the next question. All right, we'll see you guys tonight, 6 o'clock Eastern, tyt.com. And if you miss any portion of any show that we do, and we got a giant network full of progressive shows, tyt.com/trial to become a member. Try it out for free for a week. I'll see you at 6.